All right, great. Well, welcome everybody to the January meeting of the Environmental Quality Board, or EQB. My name is Nancy Daubenberger, and I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and I am honored to serve as the Chair of EQB. Maybe before we go to roll call, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge we've really had a deeply challenging start to this year. And, among the uncertainty through which we're working and the unrest, I know we all are still very committed to our mission at EQB and dedicated to enhancing Minnesota's environmental quality for current and future generations. It's with this, I know we all come with a lot of different thoughts to this meeting today, and it's easy to get distracted with all that's going on. But I just want to acknowledge that and thank you all for making the time today. And I personally liked looking out at my calendar today and appreciate that we have this meeting going on so we can talk about the important work we do and that we have ahead of us when it comes to environmental quality in Minnesota. So with that, just wanted to acknowledge that. And again, thank you all for being a part of this discussion today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Executive Director Kathleen Nuschler to take roll.
All right, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Arnold. Commissioner Arnold, I know we heard you earlier. Are you still out there?
I'm here. I just couldn't find the mute button. Sorry.
The eternal issue. Board Member Bakken.
Here.
Board Member Bauer-Kemper.
Here, thanks.
Board Member Brands. I do think we're expecting Board Member Brands in a few minutes. Commissioner Cunningham. Chair Daubenberger.
Here.
Commissioner Gronball.
Here.
Board Member Hintz. I see you.
Here.
Chair Holman, I don't believe is with us. Board Member Katzenberger.
Here.
Commissioner Kessler. Commissioner Kessler indicated she might be a few minutes late, but might expect her to join us in the room shortly. Board Member Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Verilek, I don't believe could join us today.
It's Kevin McKinnon.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Sorry, I can't. Lost my place on the list. Board Member Nelson.
Present.
I don't believe Commissioner Peterson could join us. We might have Assistant Commissioner Jesseth. Okay. Board Member Smith.
Present.
Okay, and Commissioner Stroman, I don't believe could join us. I think we have Director Melissa Kuskian.
Here.
And then I think I know Met Council has a new chair, Chair Hutchison, but Peter, I assume you're going to be the one continuing to join us. Yes, thumbs up. Okay. All right, so did I miss anyone? Did Board Member Brands join us? Commissioner Kessler. Okay. Well,
Looks like Board Member Brands.
Board Member Brands. Okay, excellent. That makes 11, Madam Chair, and our quorum is 9.
Great. Thank you, everyone. All right, so then next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. And that would be the meeting minutes from the November 19th, 2025 EQB meeting. And that was as sent out on Tuesday, November 18th. And the preliminary agenda for today's meeting, the January 21st, 2026 EQB meeting, and that is on your packet page 3. So with that, is there a motion to approve of the consent agenda?
Commissioner Arnold, approve or motions.
Thank you, Commissioner Arnold. You have a second?
Board Member Bakken, seconds.
Thank you, Board Member Bakken. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Madam Chair, I do think that date was a leftover from last meeting, so I think it is just the minutes as they were sent out in the packet.
In the packet, okay.
Yes,
All right.
had to revise.
I knew there was a revision. I wasn't paying attention to the actual date. Okay. So, yeah, we'll just edit that to as sent out in the packet for the meeting minutes. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Executive Director Nuschler, would you please take the roll on this?
Yes, I will call the roll for the motion of the consent agenda. Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
Board Member Bakken,
Support.
Board Member Bauer-Kemper,
Yes.
Board Member Brands,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham, not with us. Chair Daubenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gronval,
Yes.
Board Member Hintz,
Yes.
Chair Holman, Board Member Katzenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler, would you like to vote on the approval of the minutes and the consent agenda?
Sure, yes. Sorry to be late.
Board Member Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Verelek is not with us. Board Member Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson, not with us. Board Member Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Stroman is not with us. So that is 12, Madam Chair.
All right, very good. The motion carries and the minutes and the agenda are adopted. So now I will turn it back to you, Director Nuschler, for the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Chair Daubenberger. And yeah, I want to echo your thanks to everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate being here with all of you in person or in the virtual world. You know, as the chair said, and the staff and I want to acknowledge that, you know, it's a difficult moment in Minnesota. And I just think here at EQB, we try to be mindful of being public servants and our role here to ensure that all Minnesotans can contribute to enhancing our environmental quality. And we'll just continue to work towards our mission and center our values of collaboration, engagement, and equity. So I'm glad we're here and we're working on moving forward today's agenda. Logistics as always, especially as we're being pretty much fully virtual here with just a few of us here in the room. The meeting is being recorded. So the meeting chat is open and visible, but we don't keep that as part of the meeting record. So please leave that for logistical issues. If you can't hear or need some assistance, board members, we'll welcome your questions and discussion on our agenda item today. So please use the raise hand function and you should be able to mute and unmute yourself. Members of the public, if you want to make comments, we will have time for comments prior to the decision item, our main agenda item today related to the energy rulemaking, and then at the end of the meeting, any general comments. And so at that point, please use the raise hand button and we will add your name to the list of commenters. And then we'll cue you at the relevant points in the agenda and allow you to make your comments. Just a reminder that once we allow you to unmute, sometimes it takes a second for that setting to work, so just be patient. And again, emphasize for today, especially providing input is really important for the decision item to ask folks to give input relating to what you want the board to decide. If there are questions, we usually cannot answer those in the meetings, but we will take notes and get back to you. All right, moving on to the director's report. Again, applications for 5 of our public board seats remain open via the Secretary of State's Board and Commission's webpage. We are hoping to have applications in by sort of mid to late February. My understanding is that we anticipate board appointments being made after our April meeting. So public members, if your term expired in January, you can continue to serve until your appointment is replaced, and we hope, or your gosh, that didn't make any sense, until your replacement is appointed. There we go. And we anticipate that happening in April. So we're also starting to begin to work on plans for new public member onboarding in May. And we'll invite all of you public members, since due to the timing of when I started and resignations, I think some of you that are newer got a little shortchanged on some onboarding. So we'll work on getting that set up. I also want to remind everyone, and particularly public board members, all of the board members are public officials, and so you need to do your annual recertification of a statement of economic interest to the Campaign Finance Board. You may have gotten an email from the Campaign Finance Board indicating that that is due January 26th. I know I received the kind email last week, so hopefully all of you got that to do that certification. For the next few months, just a reminder, we do anticipate several board decision items all related to rulemaking. We have the energy infrastructure rule today. We anticipate asking for board approval of an EIS scoping rulemaking next month, and then approval to move forward with the gas production rules is anticipated in April, that request for approval. So just keep those in mind. Rulemaking processes do have key timelines, which is part of why we're meeting today, even with just the one agenda item, just to make sure that we can complete our work in the time given to us. Just note on the packet this month contained comments received after our November meeting and the items related to data centers. We're continuing to explore what the needs are around this issue and expect to have more information for all of you next month in February. In addition, the AUAR guidance update that Sarah spoke about at that meeting is continuing. There is a preliminary draft, and we're starting to reach out to some LGUs for some some review to make sure it's useful and helpful to them, especially those that have recently gone through the process. And just for an awareness, I want to mention that the staff have been getting a lot of questions and information from the residents of Owatonna that are concerned about a project called the Owatonna East Side Corridor and about an EAW that is in progress with a comment period that just recently ended. We've advised the public about the process, but there's a lot of questions, and while there isn't any EQB action expected, if anyone wants to hear more about that, please get in touch with me or the environmental review team. We have been sharing that with some of the relevant state agencies that might be more connected to the process. So with that, that is the director's report, and I'm happy to take questions.
All right, thank you, Nuschler. Do any board members have questions for Executive Director Nuschler on her report? Not seeing or hearing any, I think we can move on. So our main agenda item today is the adoption of rule changes related to energy infrastructure and similar projects. And our presenter is Kayla Walsh. And she's the Environmental Review Program Administrator here at EQB. So with that, welcome, Kayla.
Great, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, board members and members of the public. Thank you again for being here today. Hopefully I'm not echoing for you. I'm echoing for myself a little bit.
Not too bad
Let's
on
see.
that. Okay. Well, I was gonna say, I think she's good, but
Yeah.
you said it. Okay. Just trained to reply when people ask a question. Yeah, we can hear you okay, Kayla. You can keep going if it works for you, unless it's just too much on your end.
Sounds great. All right, so my presentation today is hopefully showing up correctly. It's focused on EQB's expedited rulemaking process for the environmental review of some energy infrastructure projects. This is the rulemaking that you'll remember the former environmental review director, Colleen Hetzel, previously brought to the board a few times in the last year. So last September, Colleen shared the draft rule and the board approved a resolution to start rulemaking. Today, my presentation will be very similar to the one I gave to Eris last month, except that today's board packet also includes a response to comments on the rule. And this is a decision item, as was mentioned, so we will be asking for the board to vote on moving forward with the draft rule language. I'm going to review the legislative directive, the responses to comments, and talk through what happens next in the rulemaking process. So EQB is doing this rulemaking in order to conform with the new law passed by the legislature in 2024 called the Minnesota Energy Infrastructure Permitting Act. I'll be referring to this as the Act or as 216I today. Essentially, it creates a new legislative framework for environmental review of certain energy projects and permitting of certain energy projects. It took effect on July 1st, 2025. And it is a Public Utilities Commission or PUC statute designed with the goal of streamlining, again, that permitting process for large energy infrastructure projects in Minnesota. So at the PUC, this permitting process includes evaluating and approving the site and route permits for energy facilities and completing an environmental review process as dictated by the Act. The legislature changed how these projects are permitted and how they undergo environmental review. So large energy infrastructure facilities includes project types like high voltage transmission lines, large electric power generating plants, energy storage systems, large wind energy conversion systems, solar energy systems, and associated facilities. And then in that same session law, the legislature also changed environmental review requirements for carbon dioxide pipelines, so they now require an environmental impact statement or EIS. In terms of our role, EQB's rules are really governed by the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act or MEPA, and this is the statute that outlines environmental review and directs EQB to promulgate our environmental review rules in Chapter 4410. In 2024, the Minnesota legislature directed us to conform our rules to this PUC statute for large energy infrastructure projects. And in order to conform our rule, we have been directed to use what's called the expedited rulemaking process. And expedited rulemaking is used when changes that we need to make are pretty straightforward and not interpretive. So with that in mind, we are conforming our Rule 4410 with PUC Statute 216I. And we're doing this to ensure, again, that we're accurately referencing 216I for these energy projects, and then making sure that nothing in 4410 contradicts what is set forth by the Act. So in other words, if someone were to look through our EQB mandatory category rules, they would be accurately referencing folks to look further at 216I for these certain types of energy projects that would need to follow the new Act. So we want to accurately match our rules to that statute. This slide shows a snapshot of our progress so far. We've worked with PUC staff to draft the rule amendments and share them with the board. And then EQB staff published what's called a notice. It's a notice of intent to adopt expedited permanent rules. And we did that in the state register. And this is what kicked off an open feedback period on the rules. So from October 6th through November 14th, our draft rules were available for anyone to comment on. We encouraged public comment by notifying a list of interested persons using our existing GovDelivery listserv for rulemaking updates, and also putting notices in our EQB monitor, which comes out weekly. We also emailed other groups or parties, organizations we thought would be interested, and staff sought comments from the Minnesota Tribal Environmental Committee members. So at the end of this 39-day period, we received 2 comments, one from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, or MCEA, and one from the Minnesota Biofuels Association. So we analyzed the comments and responded to them in today's board packet materials, and now we are at that second to last square of text titled Board Approval. Today we're seeking the approval of the rule language and for the board to authorize our executive director to carry on with the necessary rulemaking procedures. And then after that, we would need to take that formal action to submit the final rule so that it can become effective. Since we only received 2 comments, we did want to take some time to address each of them. The first comment is from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, or MCEA. And to summarize, they really suggested that we rephrase how our draft rule language says that environmental review is governed for large energy infrastructure projects. And their full comment is on board packet page 13. For context, as staff, we know that most people normally go to the mandatory category rules to see if their project requires review. And so we added a sentence to the mandatory category parts of rule that direct people to look at that new rule part 4410, 4100. So that added sentence says for projects under 4410, 4100, environmental review is governed by Minnesota Statute Chapter 216I, the new act. Essentially, this is how we are referring the reader to go see the PUC statute, Chapter 216I, to see if their project needs to follow the new act. MCEA's comment expresses concerns that this proposed rule language is confusing and should say that environmental review is governed by both 216I and the Minnesota Environmental Policy Act, or MEPA. However, we are not taking on the suggestion because we believe that MCEA's additional language is not necessary for clarifying the statute language. One goal of the legislature in creating this new PUC statute was to really eliminate this confusion caused by the potential for multiple environmental review processes to ensure that the environmental review of these certain projects is managed by one entity, the PUC, and one statute, Chapter 216I. So this was needed because there's been a long legislative tradition of managing the siting, the permitting, and the environmental review of these projects through energy-specific statutes and rules. So the language of Chapter 216I addresses the issue that MCEA is concerned about by referring to MEPA when appropriate. So that's why we feel this language is redundant. So for example, 216I refers the reader over to MEPA when it identifies large projects needing environmental impact statements. It says the EIS must satisfy the requirements of MEPA. So the justification memo in the board packet goes into more detail about this response to comments, as well as the relationship and the history between MEPA and the PUC statutes. But all in all, we do recognize that the interplay between the two statutes can be confusing. And that's why we believe the language in our rule is clear and sufficient for interpreting the processes of the new act. The second comment that we received is from the Minnesota Biofuels Association. Their full comment is starting on board packet page 15. The Biofuels Association shared that they were concerned that we included carbon dioxide pipeline projects in the mandatory EIS category rules. The 2024 legislation did define carbon dioxide pipeline and added a requirement in Minnesota Statute 216G, saying that carbon dioxide pipeline projects undergo a mandatory EIS, environmental impact statement, before they can be permitted. The Biofuels Association raises concerns that some of these projects may not require extensive pipeline infrastructure. So they asked EQB to also delay the rule until a carbon dioxide pipeline study is released. However, we proposed the amended rule language in order to make sure that our environmental review rules list environmental review requirements all in one place. So the definition, route permit requirement, and environmental review requirement for carbon dioxide pipelines, those are already enacted law, and EQB rules can now accurately reflect that. And we don't have the authority to carve out a specific requirement for small carbon dioxide pipelines because the statutory language from the legislature is very clear that they require an EIS. The PUC, again, also was unable to contract with a third party to complete that carbon dioxide pipeline study mentioned by the Biofuels Association as well. EQB did not draft the rule, or we did draft that rule language to be adaptable in case the definition changes. So we reference the statutory definition of carbon dioxide pipeline so that if the legislature makes changes to that definition or the thresholds there, our rule does not need to be amended and it will always accurately reflect those updates. So for those reasons, we also recommend no changes based on this comment. We really appreciated the thoughtful comments and the discussions that generated for our team. Even though we suggest no changes to the draft rule, it was very helpful to hear those comments. Today, we recommend that the board adopt the rules as drafted. Voting yes on the attached resolution would do two things. It both adopts the rule language and it allows Catherine to complete all necessary steps to complete the rulemaking process. That resolution language starts on board packet page 18. The resolution itself includes several attachments. Those attachments are the materials that submit for the Court of Administrative Hearings, or CAH, if the board approves the resolution. So those include the proposed order adopting rules, which is meant to be unsigned at this point, the rule language itself, and the rule summary and justification memo, which includes an addendum that I referenced earlier where we have EQB staff's response to comments in more detail. After that submittal, the administrative law judge, or ALJ, has 14 days to approve or disapprove the rule. If the ALJ requires or recommends changes in order to approve that rule, the judge must tell us the reasons for the disapproval, and then our executive director would make those changes and resubmit the rule. So once no further changes are required, Catherine will sign the rule or sign and file the order adopting rules with the Court of Administrative Hearings. And so the process ends with the publication of the notice of adoption in the state register. And after that, the rule goes into effect and we would notify our partners. And so that is what our process looks like moving forward. But that is all of the information that I have to share with you for now. But I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions and I look forward to hearing board discussion. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kayla, and thanks for all the work on this up to this point and your presentation today. So board members, any questions for Kayla? Again. Seeing any? Great. So we're being asked to pass a resolution on page 18 of your packet to approve and adopt the expedited permanent rules relating to energy infrastructure and to authorize the executive director to complete the process to formally adopt the rule. As I mentioned, if we don't have any questions, I'll pause for one more time, but then we'll go to a public comment period, right, for this particular agenda item, the energy rulemaking. Let me just pause one more time before we go to the public to see if they have any comments, but board members, let's call for questions before we do that. Questions or comments? Not seeing any. So with that, we will go ahead and offer the opportunity to the public to make any comments on the energy rulemaking. And everyone is online. Okay, great. So please use the raise hand function if you'd like to comment or note that in the chat. And Rebecca will call on you and then you'll be able to unmute yourself and speak online. So please be relatively brief with your comments and I'll let you know if we need you to wrap it up due to time. So with that, Rebecca, I want to call on the first one who wants to comment.
Chair, I don't see any hands raised. I do see a person has posted a comment on the chat, and I would just like to remind them that we don't keep track of It's not a record in the chat. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I mean, a comment, please raise your hand and we can then help you unmute.
For that, Rebecca.
Okay, so they have raised their hand. Bonnie, we're working on unmuting you right now. It should be okay, Chair.
Okay. Go ahead, Bonnie. You can unmute yourself at this point. Bonnie, if you are talking, we can't hear you here in the room.
Bonnie, we've made you a presenter, so you should be able to unmute yourself.
Be up at the top right-hand corner of your screen. I think you got it.
Yes, I've got it. Thank you very much.
Great.
My name is Bonnie Matter. Thank you very much for taking my question. My question is this regarding the energy rulemaking. Where does the Public Utilities Commission inform the public that the projects that are under review have met MEPA? I don't quite understand that process.
Something for the PUC to hear.
Madam Chair, I can talk about that a little bit because I think it is we don't always answer questions, but I think it is helpful to explain. I think, you know, the Public Utilities Commission comes out, like the process there comes out of the Power Plant Siting Act, which kind of grew up in, I'd say kind of parallel bodies of law to MEPA, and they're connected. And so Chapter 216I does refer to the requirements of 116D when it speaks about environmental impact statements, and the like procedures that the Public Utilities Commission implements does involve publishing in the EQB monitor, similar to other environmental review projects. It works a little bit differently because the processes are a little different, but that public information part does still happen. And I know that the staff have been continuing to connect with the PUC staff about how to make sure that that is happening efficiently and clearly. So
Thank you for that.
One more question, please. So when I go out to the PUC documents and I look up a specific area, because it's not like it comes in as one project, it comes in as a total grouping. That's the piece where, so what I'm hearing you say is that those individual items that are part of that overall project will eventually come through the Minnesota EQB monitor. Is that what I'm hearing?
Madam Chair, the environmental review documents do get published in the EQB monitor.
And what if they don't do the Minnesota environmental review documents?
Yeah,
Or
I
to the
can't,
top line.
yeah, I mean, 216I sets forth which projects are required to go through what processes, and then it's published in the monitor, but I can't speak to the PUC's docket. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so I think I have an answer for, you've answered my question for now. And what I will do is I will submit individual projects just to ask if they have been submitted. That's how I'll do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Do we have other commenters? Comment, folks.
Chair, there are no other hands raised so far.
Well, we can give it another moment here, see if others have comments they'd like to make for the public comment period. I'm not seeing any. Okay. All right. So thank you again, Bonnie, for the comment. And with that, there is that resolution again. Yes,
Madam Chair, Bonnie raised her hand again.
Bonnie, do you have another comment?
On mute.
Okay, hold on, Bonnie. We're working on unmuting you again.
Bonnie, you are able to unmute yourself now.
Bonnie, we can't hear
Okay.
you.
Yep,
There you go.
Got it. So I guess my next question is, who do I contact at the PUC that understands the process? Who would that person be? Because it's new for them too.
Okay, Bonnie, we've got a thought for you on this. Go ahead, Director Nuschler.
Yeah. If you have questions about the process and like individual projects, I would suggest that you email or call our environmental review team, and that information's on our website, and they can connect you with, they can answer your questions about specific projects to the extent that they can, and help connect you with someone at the PUC.
And thank you, because I know the EQB group is fantastic, okay? But I'm following this process through how it should work. And I'm saying that I'm concerned about the PUC and their understanding of how it's supposed to work. And it's very important that they know at this time, during this transition stage, how these things need to work. The projects that are coming in over there, it's like a fire hose. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, Bonnie, and for the shout out for the EQB staff here. I agree, they do a fabulous job. So thank you for that. Right. So I'll just do another quick check. Are you seeing any other hands, Rebecca? Okay,
No, Madam Chair.
okay, thank you. So again, board members, back to that resolution. Again, on page 18 of your packet. The board resolves to approve and adopt the expedited permanent rule relating to energy infrastructure. That's revisor of statutes draft file number AR 4944 dated October 6th of 2025. The board resolves that Catherine Nuschler, the executive director of the EQB, is hereby authorized to sign the order adopting rules, to modify the rules as needed to obtain the revisor of statutes or the administrative law judge's approval of the rules, and to perform other necessary acts to give the rules the force and effect of law. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Member Katzenberger, so moved.
Thank you, Board Member Katzenberger. Is there a second?
I can make that, Chair Daubenberger.
Thank you, Commissioner Kessler. Any discussion? Hearing any. All right, so Executive Director, want to call the roll on the motion?
Okay. Commissioner Arnold,
Yes.
Board Member Bakken,
Support.
Board Member Bauer Kemper,
Yes.
Board Member Brands,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham, not present, Chair Daubenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gronval,
Yes.
Board Member Hicks,
Yes.
Chair Holman, not present, Board Member Katzenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Kessler,
Yes.
Board Member Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Verlack, not with us, Board Member Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson, not with us, Board Member Smith,
Hi.
Commissioner Stroman, not with us. And I'm sure that is 12 aye votes. No nays and no abstentions, or not present.
The resolution is passed. And again, thank you for all the work on the rulemaking for the energy infrastructure. EQB. Okay, so that brings us to our final agenda item, which is general public comment. This is a chance for you members of the public to provide input to the board about issues related to the board's purview or authority. If you have a question for the board or EQB staff, I will ask staff to note that and get back to you at a later time. If any other board members are interested in hearing about or being involved in the follow-up, please let me know. This ensures that we'll have enough time in a meeting for all commenters to provide input at the board and that your question can be fully considered. Okay, to make a comment, please make sure you have signed up or just raise your hand in Teams. So with that, we have the slide up here about how to raise your hand in Teams. And I know there are no folks here to comment in person. So if you're online, we'll notify you when you can unmute and go ahead and start speaking. So please be patient. There is a little bit of a lag there before you can click and unmute yourself. So for those wishing to comment online, Rebecca will call on you. Please keep your remarks fairly concise. We'll alternate between people. And with that, Rebecca, do we have anyone with their hands raised or looking to comment online?
Chair, we don't have any hands yet.
Okay, we will give it a moment. Public to comment on the general topics under the EQB's purview. Still nothing? Okay, not seeing or hearing anything. So with that was a brief meeting we had today. I understand our February meeting is a pretty packed agenda, so we will be able to close this meeting out a little earlier than normal. But that's not going to be normal. Don't get used to this short meeting. But thank you all for your participation again today. I know, again, just want to mention this is a very challenging time for all of us, and it's hard to stay focused on the work. But I really appreciate all the folks who were able to join today to have a quorum and to be able to work through our energy rulemaking and get that passed, and just the continual work of the board and the EQB staff. Thank you so much, everybody, and just hope everyone can stay safe and well out there and take care of your families and each other. And with that, we've reached the end of the agenda, so I'm just going to make a call. Any further business today? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank